Bay Area Congresswoman Jackie Spear hopes California and Washington, D.C. can agree on federal funding to upgrade Caltrain and create thousands of jobs. Caltrain currently runs on diesel fuel, but a new project would change that to electricity at a cost of $1.9 billion. Nearly $650 million from the federal government hangs in the balance. Now, last month, the state's Republican congressman wrote to the transportation secretary asking her not to release the funds. They say an electrified Caltrain would eventually become part of the state's high-speed rail system.
Electrifying Caltrain has been an effort for more than 15 years.
California's congressional Democrats also sent a letter asking the transportation secretary to approve the funds, which they say would create more than 9,000 jobs. We should know this month what President Trump's transportation secretary decides.
And this is the first big showdown between the Trump administration and California. Joining us now to talk more about this funding issue is High-Speed Rail Board Chair Dan Richard. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
This money is basically tied with high-speed rail funding. Caltrain doesn't like to talk about it much, but they need this money in order to electrify the system to keep it going, right?
There are several sources of money for the Caltrain electrification, which for years has been the #1 transportation priority for the Bay Area.
Because it can't keep operating as a diesel, make money and provide service.
And by the way, electric trains are both faster, but that you can get more capacity in there, which is what this money is for. Look, this was really, I think, showing that the opponents are on the wrong side of history on this. This is a very important project for the Bay Area and for the state. The fact that high-speed rail will use it in the future is no reason to oppose it.
But this also shows how the taps of federal government really work. What we have here is money that needs to be approved. We're not, and everybody says, well, the Trump administration can't block funding. Yes, they can. They can tap the brakes on this and send that project into a tailspin, right?
Well, but I think one of the interesting things this week was, yes, there was the Republican letter that said, oh, don't do this money because it might affect high-speed rail. Virtually at the same time, the new president was coming out and lamenting the fact that America doesn't have fast trains and hosting the Japanese prime minister who came to say, we'll bring money to put money into fast trains.
Of the state's Republicans, and by the way, the Republicans are in charge of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, 14 of them saying, don't do it. That's a chit down for the incoming president and his administration, isn't it?
Well, I think the question is whether or not the incoming president and incoming Secretary Chow are going to be more motivated by the fact that there are American jobs. Look, these trains, by the way, would be built in Utah. And, I mean, these are jobs not just in California, but across America.
Oh, so you're pitching red state jobs in order to keep it going.
Well, I'm not the one pitching it, but I'm just making the point that these investments in infrastructure are not limited to one locale.
But let's get to the politics of this, because you're making these arguments, and I'm sure they're being made back and forth. But if this does go through, and there is a hold put on this money, contracts will have to be reassessed. It could be a real mess. What effect would it have on high-speed rail?
The irony of what the Republicans did is that we can actually build high-speed rail from the Central Valley to San Jose and operate it without a subsidy as the Bond Act required. It would be nuts not to come into San Francisco. But the problem is they didn't do their homework. They're trying to attack a popular, important program because it might have some impact on high-speed rail. It doesn't have the impact they think it does in the short term. In the long term, it certainly would.
All right, where does this put Governor Jerry Brown? I know he's a friend of yours. He appointed you to this commission. He expects you to get the job done. But on one hand, he is attacking the Trump administration on a number of fronts. He's been conspicuously quiet on some others. He hasn't attacked the president by name, and he said, I want the infrastructure money.
I think if you look at the governor's State of the State message, he was very clear. He's going to be passionate about the things that he cares about. Protection against global warming, protection for those with the least among us. But at the same time, in his State of the State message, he said, look, if there's a chance to work together on infrastructure, we should do that.
That's going to be an interesting dance, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I just think you have to be realistic. California right now, we're going to need federal funds for emergency relief. I mean, there are a lot of things that we need. You know, I think if everything's about everything, you get nothing. So you have to be practical, and this governor is.
That's the quote of the day, folks. If everything is about everything, you get nothing. You can even remember that while you're driving in your car and having fun with your family about where to go. Anyway,